Hello everyone and welcome to the second Working with Turbo video.
If I was the student, would you be the teacher? If I was the sinner, would you be the preacher? Would you be my... It's the done. I still got a lot of shit to learn.
So I've had about 3 sessions or so in between from the last session, so this is probably our 4th or 5th session, can't really remember. The main thing we were focusing on in this session was him not trying to bite the target or just wrap his lips around it or play with it with his lips, because he started doing that a little bit. So that's what we were mainly focusing on. I was trying so hard not to get the treats out before I gave him the cue to target, so I think that has gotten better. I still do give the cue more than once sometimes, but I feel like he just needs that to remind him at times. Usually it's just once, but sometimes he just needs it to remind him again if something distracts him. So I'll let you guys watch this video and I'll just put in little comments wherever I think necessary, and enjoy. I'll just add in quickly as well, this was at about 5 PM, so everyone was getting fed, all the horses were getting brought in around him, so he does look around quite a bit because it was all just a bit too distractive for little baby Turbo. Did I say distractive? Is that a word? I think distractive is a word. No, distracting. I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna go. So right there is a perfect example of what he was doing. He was kind of flinging his lips at it and trying to nibble it a bit. So I just waited for the split second when his mouth was closed but still touching it, and I rewarded him for that. So he does eventually get that his mouth has to be shut while he's touching the target in order to get his reward. And I was a little bit inconsistent with that, as you would have just seen. I accidentally rewarded him for kind of biting it, not with a still mouth, which I do stop doing towards the end of the video. Like now, I'm waiting for him to have his mouth closed, so he touches it a few times with his mouth open and nibbles it a bit, and then right there he gets it and he gets the reward. So it's just about repetition and keeping consistent, which I do better towards the end of the video. I made the mistake of not being consistent in the beginning, but he does learn by the end of the video that he has to have a still mouth. So the reason I'm not rewarding him right there for doing good manners is because he was just distracted and looking at something else, and he hadn't really realized that I was there with the treats. While I was there, he realized he put his face away, so I clicked and rewarded. I personally only reward for good manners once he's definitely realized that I'm there and he's purposely putting his face away from me, or I'm very close to him and he's looking at something and he's kept his face away from me for a long time. And what you can see him doing here is he's offering good manners when he's confused and he doesn't know what I want him to do. So I was asking him to target, which he just did, and he offered good manners at first. So the first trick or behavior that you teach a horse is usually going to be what it goes back to when it's confused about a new trick, or sometimes if it's in a state of stress, because they know that that's a happy place for them and that they're going to get rewarded for that. So actually it's very good that he's offering this behavior when he's confused, because in opposed to him rearing or doing some other extravagant trick, if I'd have taught him that first, he just puts his head away from me, which is very safe for both of us, and it's just much better than him rearing or doing some extravagant trick which could get us both in danger. So just be mindful when you first start training your horse that the first thing you train them is something you won't mind them doing often if they're confused or stressed. So as you can see in the next few clips where I'm rewarding him for good manners, he does have his head away and is looking at something else, but he doesn't rummage through me at all. He keeps his head away while I walk over to him and while I'm standing quite close to him, and then here he's looking at something, but then he stops looking at it and he just keeps his head in that neutral position away from me, so he gets rewarded for that. So I guess it just kind of depends what you really want to have as good manners, and it's just a personal preference whether you want to have manners as they have to have their head turned away, or they can have it in a neutral position, just as long as it's not rummaging through you, which is what I have. So you just have to think about whether they are actually focusing on what you're asking them to do and they're thinking about it, or they're just looking at something else completely and not giving a care in the world. And when I clicked him just there a few seconds ago, I really messed that up because I wasn't going to click him because he kind of tried to eat it, but then I decided to click him last minute and then it was too late, and then I just kind of messed that whole thing up. So that definitely was not something that you want to do. You have to make sure that if you click, you know when you're going to click, and so I'm still learning, so that was a mistake that I made just there, and I just thought I'd point it out so that you guys know not to do that. And right here, I reward him for having an open mouth, which was wrong. I shouldn't have rewarded him for that, and I did do it the clip before as well. So it's just something for me to take back on, and here I wait for him to close his mouth. So I just need to work on becoming more consistent with what I'm rewarding him for, and there he definitely was trying to bite it. So I'm just waiting for him to have a closed mouth, and then I will click and reward him. So when I rewarded him there, he did move his lips a little bit when he touched it, but what I was looking for was for him to touch it with the top of his lip instead of the front of his mouth where he was trying to bite it. So it's just progress, not perfection. Also, there was randomly like these really loud trumpets going on during this, so that's mainly what he kept on looking at, and I don't know if you can hear it, but there was just like trumpets. I don't know what that was about. So there you can't really see very well, but he was moving his lips a lot and then he stilled them, which was really good because that would have been good for helping him to learn that moving his lips doesn't get him a reward, but stilling them does, because he literally, the second he's changed, I clicked it. And then after this, I went off to get more treats, and then he walked away and decided he didn't want to come back and do more training. So that was the end of this session.